What's up, guys? Today we're going to be going over yet another Warlock build. This one's be called The Floor is Lava, and there's actually going to be two builds in this video. Both are extremely strong and pretty similar. So by the end of the video, let me know which one of the two is your favorite. And like I mentioned, both are going to be pretty similar, both revolving around Top Tree Dawn Blade. So first, start off with the first build. As I mentioned, Top Tree Dawn Blade with solar grenades. And pretty much every perk on Top Tree will come into play in this build. So looking at the weapons we're going to be using Martyr's Retribution, which is going to be that very unique grenade launcher. Then also 1000 voices in our heavy slot. So both of these are going to be solar splash damage weapons, which is going to be very important. Now looking at our exotic armor piece, we're going to be using Sun Bracers, which is going to be whenever we get a charged melee kill, we're going to be able to throw infinite solar grenades for a few seconds. And this is why having demolitionist on the Martyr's Retribution will be very important. And you can actually farm for this weapon still this season using umbrals. So if you don't have one, I definitely recommend picking one up. So far the concept behind the build is consume your grenade to start floating with heat rises. Then pretty much what you do is get a charged melee kill to proc some bracers, and you shoot martyrs, throw a grenade, shoot martyrs, throw a grenade back and forth, and it auto reloads because of demolitionist. And you can pretty much do that combo forever because of the fact that once the sun bracers is done, you then have your charged melee again because of the fact that when you get airborne kills, you get your melee back on Top Tree. So now looking at the mods we're going to be using with this build, the first one will be Wrath of Rasputin, where solar splash damage final blows have a chance to spawn Warmind cells. And this is going to work really well on this build because not only do all of our abilities, including our melee, then also grenades, create Warmind cells because they're solar splash damage, so will both of the weapons we're using. First, Martyr's Retribution, all the kills will count towards the solar splash damage to create a Warmind cell. Then also, our 1000 voices in our heavy slot will do the same. So every single thing we're using in this build will be able to create Warmind cells, which is going to be really strong. And every single time you get one of those Warmind cells to spawn in, that is like a little pocket nuke. Moving on to the next mod we'll be using will be Solar Plexus, which will be the artifact mod this season where we get increased solar melee damage. And also we have global reach on our bond also to increase the radius of those nukes. So looking at what Solar Plexus does, it normally hits 1301 on this ogre. Now with the perk on, it goes up to 1951, which is going to be a 50% increase, which means it's going to be a lot easier to proc some bracers and have that perk up at all times. Looking at the final mods we'll be using in this build, we'll be using Blast Radius. Because of the fact that we're going to be using our martyrs so often, it's going to be very easy to get double kills and become charged with light. Then with those stacks of charged with light, we're going to be using this perk right here, which is called Heal Thyself, where while you're charged with light, grenade final blows heal you and consume one stack of charged with light. So pretty much the overall concept of this build is consume your grenade to start floating, then pretty much proc sun bracers, and you can spam martyrs and grenades pretty much forever. You will have your melee charge back by the time you need it. So as you're doing this, you'll probably have multiple Warmind cells all over the place, just ready to shoot. And if you ever get bored of spamming your Martyr's Retribution and also your solar grenades, you also have 1000 voices for boss damage and stuff like that, which also once again can create Warmind cells. So yeah, this build is super lethal for ad clear, then also single target damage. Spamming martyrs at a single target or 1000 voices are both very good DPS options. And as I mentioned multiple times, if you ever get bored of spamming martyrs, you then probably have 4 or 5 Warmind cells just laying around. And speaking of Warmind cells, I'm using a random hand cannon with demolitionist to shoot them. It doesn't really matter what you use in your primary slot, I'm just using that to shoot Warmind cells. Then I also have special finisher to help with my special ammo economy. Moving on to the second build in this video, it'll be pretty similar with the same general concept of Top Tree Dawn Blade, but pretty much everything else will be changing. So now looking at the weapons we'll be using, you'll find that there's something in common with all three of the weapons I'll be using. So first starting with Monte Carlo as our kinetic primary. This exotic will give us our melee energy back on damage and also final blows. Then also it has a swashbuckler perk that stacks up to ×5 as you get kills, or if you get a melee final blow, it will give you ×5 right off the bat. Then for our special slot, we're going to be using Truth Teller, which will have Grave Robber and Swashbuckler, and this is a rolled drop, so there's no way to necessarily farm for it. But if you have either of those perks, it'll work really well. Then in our heavy slot, we have the Interference, which once again is a rolled drop that can come with Swashbuckler and Grave Robber. And if you don't have either of these weapons, you can really use any Swashbuckler weapon in either of these slots, or you could even use the Guillotine in your heavy if you don't have a Swashbuckler GL. For our exotic armor piece for this build, we're going to be using Karnstein Armlets, where melee kills instantly restore a large amount of health and continue to restore health afterwards for a short duration. And pretty much how these works is you get a chunk of health on final blow with a melee, then you also get constant healing for 8 seconds afterwards, so you're pretty much a mobile healing rift, which is really cool. and pretty much makes it so you can't die with that perk active unless you're really over your head. And looking at the mods for this build, we're going to be using Blast Radius because of the fact that we're going to be using Truth Teller, then also our Heavy GL a lot. Then we're also going to be using Sustained Charge, which will allow us to become Chargeable Light with 3 or sometimes 4 rapid kills with our Monte Carlo. Then we also have stacks on stacks, that way if either of those previous mods proc, we get 2 stacks of Chargeable Light. Then we also have Solar Plexus for that 50% melee increase. Then finally, the last mod we'll be using is Heavy Handed. While Chargeable Light, regain half of your melee energy when you use a charged melee ability, consuming 1 stack of Chargeable Light. So once again, the main concept behind this build is start floating. You use your ranged melee attack to proc both Grave Robber and Swashbuckler on all 3 of the weapons we're using. Then we pretty much get our melee charge back in 2 kills, so you can pretty much spam your melee, which procs Karnstein Armlets, which will give you health back on kill and also start that regen process. Then on top of that, like I mentioned, you're proccing Swashbuckler ×5, then also reloading your weapons. So yeah, I think you can kind of understand the synergy going on with this build. It's kind of crazy. So pretty much you never have to reload with any of your weapons. You constantly have ×5 Swashbuckler for whatever weapon you have out. Then you also have constant healing. So yeah, this build is actually really strong. So those were the 2 builds. Let me know which one was your favorite. The first one with Sunbracers is extremely strong for ACLR and also single target damage. It's actually like so efficient that you can clear out entire like strike room. Then once they're done, you kind of look around and there's like probably like 7 or 8 Warmind Cells laying around, and you're like, I probably could have shot those, but you kind of forgot because of how quick you're going through the ads in the first place with the Martyrs. Then the second build is really strong also. I really like having Karnstein up pretty much the entire time you're using the build. That constant healing is really strong. Then on top of that, the ability just to have Swashbuckler on all 3 of your weapons pretty much forever, and also proc Grave Robber on all 3 of the weapons pretty much every other kill is really cool and allows you to spam your GLs without reloading also. So yeah, I think that's gonna be it for the video. Thanks for watching. Catch you guys next time.